All right. Here we are with Andy Crawford for episode 17 of the Stones of Strength podcast, our heavyweight division StonelyFans competition winner. Welcome, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
We and many other people are very excited to have this discussion with you. I mean, we'll get into it a lot more later, but in my case, I'm sitting next to and chatting with two people who are probably in the top 10 when it comes to shouldering strength in the world. And I know that is a bit of a difficult feat for a lot of people, and a lot of people are really excited for us to be able to pick your brain and share some of your knowledge. But let's start at square one. When did Andy Crawford first get introduced into stone lifting, and what was that relationship like?
So that was back in, when was that? 2018. Yeah, 2018, I think it was, when I found out about the Dinnie stones. And so I was like, well, that seems cool, because I'd found out that, can't remember her name off the top of my head, but it was the nurse from Australia. She'd come over, someone Keen, can't remember her name, but she'd come over and she'd lifted them, and I saw it in the newspaper, and I was like, oh, where are they? And then found out that they were just, next to Aberdeen, and I, at the time, lived in a place called Fraserburgh, which is like 40 miles away. So I was like, well, let's go for that, let's train for that. And at the time, unfortunately, my grandmother, she'd been diagnosed with cancer. So I thought to myself, well, maybe I could, pair it up with raising money for cancer research. So I got sponsorship and was like, right, I'll train for this and raise some money and then do a cool feat of strength at the same time. And that was it, really. So that's how it kind of started.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
This was all, so you hadn't even seen Stoneland at this time. You found it just through the newspaper.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's
Because
right.
Stoneland seems to be a lot of people's introduction, like ours included, into especially the Dinnie stones.
Yeah, so I hadn't actually seen that. And then obviously when I started training and then started getting a bit more serious, because I started with the trap bar and then worked up to like, the usual kind of like 250 kilo in the trap bar, and then found out that you could get trainers. And at the time it was Killer Strength that were making those. And I just got a pair of trainers and then, started using those pins to train for it. And then did my research online and found out that, lo and behold, there was this documentary, Stoneland. Watched that. That was even more inspiring. So that kept me going, and I just went from there, and that was it. Unfortunately, though, I should have lifted them about 18 months before I did, because right when lockdown started, for COVID, was when I was supposed to lift them. So I had trained, I'd peaked, it was perfect, I was going to go and do it, and then boom, lockdown hit, and then, it's delayed the lift by 18 months, which is a right pain in the neck.
Oh, man, that's such a pain.
That's terrible timing.
Yeah.
Where was it along your road for preparing for the Dinnie stones where you became aware of the more traditional style of Scottish stone lifting and natural stone lifting?
Because like lockdown and all that's a bit of a blur. It was sometime during lockdown. I think if memory serves, what happened is during lockdown I was using the Dinnie trainers and things, but then I also wanted to start training natural stones, but I didn't actually have any natural stones at the time. So what I did was I made my first Frankenstone, and so I got some gravel, just like pea gravel, and I filled up like a Pilates ball,
Yeah.
and I filled that with gravel. Went terribly because I just duct taped the outside of it, thought it would hold. It didn't. It burst. It went all over the garage, and so I went, okay, right, I'm gonna have to think this through. So even more duct tape. So what it was the Pilates ball filled with bags of gravel and then duct taped the living hell out of it. And that came out initially. It came out at about somewhere between 80 and 90 kilos. So it was a really good like kind of starting weight. And then it just kept getting added to like Frankenstein, like bits. Eventually there was like shopping bag like taped to it, so I had like a big bit sticking out the side, and it ended up being just under 110 kilos.
Do you still have that?
Yeah, because I started doing this weird thing, which was like every holiday I would make it into something else. So it was an Easter egg. So I got coloured duct tape and made it into an Easter egg,
Yeah.
and lifted that. Then I made it into, for Halloween, I made it into a pumpkin, and then for Christmas I made it into Christmas pudding. So
That's
yeah.
awesome. It's like part of the family.
yeah, so it just lives in the garden now, behind the shed, basically.
That's hilarious.
What a rewarding journey for that Frankenstone to see from those
Yeah.
humble beginnings to where you are now.
I know, it's really cool. I mean, it's really nice to see. Is that's the boy's name? The German guy, Florian, I think his name is, the lifting hacks guy. I don't know if you follow him, but he's doing exactly the same thing.
Oh,
And he didn't know that I'd done it, and he's doing exactly the same thing. So he's got a Frankenstone that's getting bigger and bigger as time goes on.
That's hilarious, man. So, out of curiosity, prior to the Denny stones, did you have any strength training background? Because usually when somebody becomes interested in the Denny stone, they at least have some kind of their footing in the strength world of some sort.
Yeah, so basically what happened was I hadn't done a lot. I mean, I trained with my dad when I was younger, like just sort of doing, sort of bro lifts, curls and, bench press and that kind of thing. But I'd never really done like many squats or like deadlifts or anything like that. So what happened was I think it was around about 2014, 2015. I just decided, because that was like the golden era on YouTube, where you had like Rubish and you had George Lehman just going nuts on YouTube, and the Lily Bridges and all that, and I just stumbled upon that on YouTube, and I was like, wow, that looks cool. Why don't we try some of that? So I taught myself how to squat and deadlift, and then it kind of spilled into aesthetics, because at the time I was overweight but I wasn't strong, so I was just like, right, let's go for the kind of Hugh Jackman, like, Wolverine kind of physique. That was the kind of goal. And so I just did a bit of bodybuilding unintentionally, and it was based off of like German volume training, so 10 by 10. So I painfully slowly worked up from the bar, doing like deadlifts, sumo deadlifts, trap bar deadlifts. From the bar, I worked all the way up to 10 by 10, 180 kilos, and that was at 82 kilos body weight, so that was okay. It's pretty decent.
Very good. Yeah, that's
it was
really
alright. And then because I'd done that for like a good few years, I just got bored of it, and I started doing like kind of CrossFit kind of stuff. I think it is, like the WODs. So I did a few of them, and I just just got a bit bored with it. It was just this high volume all the time. And then that was, as I say, about four years or so, and then that's when I discovered the Denny's, and I switched from that like high volume stuff to the more kind of singles and doubles and all that kind of thing.
So I'm curious, because it sounds like your journey in weightlifting wasn't something that was a labor of love. You kind of just did it, number one, to lose weight and get a bit stronger, but it never really captured you the way that stone lifting has, because it's from our point of view, like, it seems like you are, for not in a derogatory way, like a stone lifting fanatic, which most of us are. What is it about natural stone lifting that has been able to hold your attention where bodybuilding or CrossFit wasn't able to?
So I mean, I think it's I think that is something really important to consider. It's much more, to me, it's much more, I don't know what the word would be, like organic. It just feels like, it's like solving a puzzle. It's finding different ways to lift the stone. There's infinite different combinations you can do, and it just, for me at least, it just never gets stale. Whereas a barbell lift is a barbell lift. The deadlift goes up and down, and that's it. And you can do like different variations in volume and things, slight variations, like sumo or conventional. But other than that, a deadlift. Whereas stone lifting, it just feels organic. It feels like there's just so many different things you can do. And as I say, one of the key things in my training is that for the past like 3 years, I've hit a PR every single session for 3 years. So how fresh?
Yeah.
That'll
fire a guy up pretty quick.
How fresh is that? It's so fresh.
Yeah.
But by that I mean, like, obviously not a weight PR, but it could be like different combinations, because I lift Atlas stones, sandbags and natural stones every single session. It's an infinite number of combinations you can do with that.
I think PR is something that people focus so much on, just like a specific weight, right? Like with the deadlift or a squat, it's like, oh, I got a 5-pound PR. With stones, we can't exactly measure it like that because of the huge gaps in weights, right? But I also think there's something like almost an efficiency PR, right? Where you could do, a slightly bigger stone, you could do another rep. If you're doing a shoulder, you could bring it down to your knees, put it back up. But I also think when we're talking about such large ranges of motions, and it can be such a difficult thing, that the actual efficiency that you can do it. So maybe you lift the same stone to shoulder, but you did it way, way, way smoother with way more gas in the tank. And I think that that's often underrated and overlooked by a lot of people, is just that can be a huge win in itself, is just a slight bit more efficiency, because that gives you something to build off of.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. I mean, like for example, one of the first stones I got was my 130 Atlas stone. and I'm still doing new things on that. You know, I'm still doing like I just hit a calculus one motion for a triple. You know, hadn't done that before, so
Yeah,
just
it's
something
great.
different. You know, something new, great. You know, and then I'll try for four, or I'll do a triple and try and bring it back to lap, and then go back up to shoulder, pause or something. You know, there's just so many different things you can do. So it's just for me, it just never gets old.
Yeah, for sure. I hear you there.
What was the first natural stone that you lifted? Then, if it, historical or not?
So it started really badly, actually. I got humiliated. I don't actually count this as the start of my journey because it's so cringy, because my first one was the Inver.
Okay, that's a
And
humbling stone.
I'd done the Denny's, and I was like, you know, I'd done like 400 kilos in training. You know, that's you know, the Inver's nothing. That's like nearly 4 times lighter than my top set. So went out to the Inver. It was like, oh, this will be so easy, and then went to lift it. Hadn't really done much by the way of like round stones, and because it's like, you know, 118 kilos, first time actually lifting a stone, because you know it was only the Franken bag, which is only about, as I say, 80 kilos or so. Went to go for it, and I felt a pop in my left bicep, and I didn't do much damage, but that was a little sort of, you know, problem for a good few years after that. I had to really work to rehabilitate it, so that was really embarrassing. And then after that, I went and did the Braven. So that was my first successful lift, because I was a bit lighter, a bit more like my Frankenstone, and that was my first shoulder, and I shouldered that first time, and that was just where the love for it came, because that kind of, you know, shoulder it, get it on the shoulder, take the hand away, conquered the weight, it's balanced now, fantastic, and that's just where it all started really. So the Inver was, if I'm being honest, the first one, but the Braven was the first success.
For sure.
And you got the injury at the Inverstone. Was it shortly thereafter that you lifted the Bravenstone, or was there a bit of a gap?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a gap, maybe like 6 months or so, something like that, but not too much.
So even after the injury, you still decided that this was something you wanted to do. Like, first time trying to hurt your bicep, but you're like, there's something about this. I have to try again.
Yeah, I mean, that's just always been something in my mentality. Whenever I've set myself a goal, I've always been just so tenacious with it. It's just something that's ingrained in my like personality. So that just fired me up even more. I was just like, I'm gonna go get this done. And then it was a similar story with the menses, or the Mengus, because it's, as you'll know, it's really smooth. Same thing. Went and lifted the monocule because Jamie had just found it at the time. And I was like, oh, the monocule, 120 kilos, that'll be fine. Then go and do this little Menzies stone because it's only like 115, that'll be easy. And couldn't get it off the ground. And there was like a bunch of like tourists watching. And I was just making an absolute fool of myself. And it was even cringier than the Inver, because I had the audience. And I was like, oh, I'll take all the kit. So it was like all the gear, no idea. I had fingerless gloves on. Yeah, fingerless gym gloves. I had stone sleeves. I had elbow sleeves, and I still couldn't get it. Just I was like, oh my god, what an idiot!
Awesome.
So bad. But yeah, anyway, that was what fired me up, because I was like, my god, did that thing kick my backside? So that was it. Straight home, on the phone to Stephen at Atlas Endurance, and I was like, I need round stones. So I ordered myself a 110 and 130 and just trained the living heck out of that, and then went back down and smashed the Mengus.
That's hilarious that it went down like that. Now, at what point along all of this did you start getting linked up with other Scottish stone lifters?
So it was, when was it? It was right at the end of 2022. So it was like December 2022, and that's when I first met Michael Brown. Because I was like, where do I go next? I've lifted the Dinnies. You know, what do I do now? You know, do I want to try and compete? Maybe try that. So I noticed that Jamie had started his McGregor Games, and so I was like, okay, that's great. And I looked at the events, and I was like, okay, I don't have a lot of this kit. I looked through the names, I wonder if anyone's from my area, and most people weren't. You know, they were mostly from like the central belt of Scotland, which is like 3.5 hours away. But I looked at one name, and I was doing my Facebook stalk, like who are all these people, and then I found Michael, who is only half an hour away. So I just said to him, I said, "Oh, I notice you're training for this competition, same as me. Do you want to meet up and see what kit you've got, see what kit I've got, and then maybe we can combine, train at each other's?" And it just took off from there. And that was the first stone lifter I got in contact with.
That was the birth of the Moldy Shed crew.
That was the birth of the Moldy Shed crew.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
For anyone who isn't familiar with Michael Brown, one of the strongest pound for pound stone lifters in the world, like unbelievably strong.
Yeah, he's freaky strong guy. And he seems like such a nice fella too.
Yeah, he's unbelievable. I mean, he's very humble. I mean, I know stone lifting, it's not all about like one-upmanship and like who's this and who's that, but you've got to give Michael his due. He's the lightest man that I know of that shouldered the Advorlic. And obviously he's the only, I think it's only myself and him who have shouldered Big Rusty. So he's like by far the lightest to do that. It's just incredible.
What's his body weight?
So he just did a comp recently and got officially weighed. So he's just on 95 kilos.
95. Okay, so yeah, it's right around where we are. I think we're doing the quick math here. Yeah, it's the same weight as we are then.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's very impressive that he's done all those lifts.
Yeah, it's nuts. And then that was it. He's got a similar mentality to me, so it was just a case of we met up and I had found a stone which is now the Mill Shore stone. Found it in the sea when I was out sea swimming, and that was the start of like placing natural stones. So I said to him, I found this stone, it weighs 125 kilos. Do you want to go and do a session on it? So down we went, and he got the first shoulder of it. I didn't get it at the time, and it was just, that was it, to and fro for the next best part of, like, I would say again about 18 months. Just he would get a lift, I would get a lift, he would get a sandbag, I would get a sandbag, and then it was just like pushing each other relentlessly for all that time, and it just exploded.
Iron sharpens iron. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's very important to have training partners like that. You help push each other in such a positive manner.
Yeah, oh, massively. And then that was it. The stone obsession started. We started placing other stones in the area. We started like finding other stones every other weekend. I just built up the collection from there. And I think, oh my goodness, I think we must have between us, must have about 60 stones now or something.
Beautiful.
Something like that. Mad.
And I want to sort of touch on something that you had mentioned, because we've talked about it in previous episodes about, you're clearly very humble. Michael's clearly very humble, and it takes someone being humble to really enjoy stone lifting, because like after your first experience with Inverstone, someone who isn't humble is not going to come back. Yep. But I think it's more than just being humble, but it's someone who's motivated in defeat, if you can call it defeat, who wants to then come back and doesn't just go, this isn't either something because I'm immediately good at it, I enjoy, or something that I'm even interested in anymore because it's just, you're not willing to allow yourself to be faced with the realization that you're not good enough at something yet. Have you run into situations either in the greater stonelifting community or even in the people that you train with where someone has come in, they haven't had that humble attitude, they've been humbled, and then you never see them again? Because we have.
Oh yeah, quite often.
Yeah, quite a few times. Guys will come on tours and they see like myself and Michael like shouldering all these big stones, and I think they just take it for granted, because obviously when you've built up that technique and you built up that efficiency, you do make it look easy. And I think these guys go, oh well, I'll give it a go, and then some of the guys I've been on tours with, they're just getting bright red and so frustrated because like they could wipe the floor with me with their like barbell numbers, their gym numbers, their strongman numbers, but because they haven't trained that particular movement, they can't understand why can I not do this, and then that's it. You never see them on a tour again. They just kick it back to their powerlifting or their strongman, which is a shame. It's a shame.
It is a shame, but I do love seeing that. Like, we've had guys come down, and I'm not laughing at them in like a negative or malicious way, but they'll walk down and they'll take their barbell numbers and they have that in the forefront of their mind, and then our site. So ours isn't spread out; it's kind of all within a couple small sites right next to each other, and so we have everything from 100, 120, 130 pounds up to 440. I think is our biggest one. And so they'll go around, okay, that weighs that weighs that. And like, you explain it to them and they're like, okay, well, I'll be getting that to here. And then they just get torqued by it because it's just a completely different thing. You cannot compare the weights of a barbell and the weight of a stone they're not the same planet. Like you cannot compare them whatsoever.
No, 100% agreed. And it's a shame because I mean I always tell those two like cringy stories that I've just told you, and I say, you know, I was doing like 400 up to 400 kilo dinny lifts, you know, so I was like, well, it'll be easy. And I tell them the story to try and say, you know, it's not the same. You need to build up experience in these positions with the natural stones, but sometimes it just falls on deaf ears. But you can only do what you can, you know.
It is a bit too bad because it does limit the growth of the stone lifting community, but at the same time, it is sort of self-selective. So there's a particular kind of person who continues to involve themselves in stone lifting and becomes a part of the community. So there is good and bad for sure.
You know, you want people that are okay being humbled, right? Like I love being humbled by it. It shows you have so much more room for growth in it, right? Like if you were to just walk in and be awesome at it, well, things are going to get boring. Right, you need to be able to be humbled by things,
and this is a good community to be humbled in because, like you just said, when you saw these people struggling and being down on themselves for not being able to achieve a lift, you extended some knowledge and let them know that you had a similar story to try to make them feel better about the fact that you can't just walk into this and be an expert. And so, if there's a community where you know people are going to reach out and help you overcome those hurdles, this is definitely the one. So,
Oh, massively, yeah. Like with me, I was quite lucky in that I got up to around about, what was it? Well, is it like the Advorlic kind of weight? I got up to about 152 kilos, which is the Advorlic weight, and I was like getting those kind of weights. I was getting them within one session, so I was really lucky. But then the next jump up, which was to then try and shoulder Big Rusty, that's where it all fell apart. And I mean, I don't know if you noticed on my Instagram, but if you look back, it was the Rose Hearty stone. It's the 163.4 kilo one, which is bang on. I think it's bang on 260 pounds. And that took me about, I think it was about 10 months of fails. And when people ask me about it, I go, you've got to live. I mean, I don't know if this is cringy or whatever, but I go, you've got to bask in failure. You've got to love the failure, enjoy the failure, and see those failures as volume. Because there was some sessions where I was maybe getting that stone to chest, maybe like 10 attempts, and then going for the hikes and maybe only getting one, and I was hitting myself in the chin and I couldn't get it to balance. But if you actually look back on all those sessions, all those attempts, all that knowledge, all that skill acquisition, all that volume between the ground, because there was quite a few times where I would pick it up, but it might not get it to lap. That's more volume as well. So that 10-month block of just huge amounts of volume, getting it to sort of like chest height, that's what unlocked the next stage where I was able to then push towards like 170 kilos plus.
I think this is a good point to sort of dovetail into one of the main topics of conversation that we wanted to cover, and part of it stems off a question that came in from Sean Urquhart, who is a like world-class stone lifter. He was wondering about your programming and how you train. And I think we're, you know, like I mentioned before, myself and anyone listening is in a unique position because we have two people who are top 10, possibly top 5 best stone lifting shoulders in the world active in this conversation. Not me, that'd be Dave and you, Andy. And I'd love to open up a bit of a dialogue and comparing, contrasting how you both train for shouldering, whether it be technique or volume or approaches, and try to sort of see, because David, you've mentioned many times, there is no one right way to do it. And if someone says there is, they're trying to sell you something. Mm-hmm. And I'd imagine both of you go about your training in a very different, we'll find out, maybe not, but in a very different approach with fairly similar levels of success.
Yeah, so this is one of the biggest conundrums for me that goes around in my head all the time. Am I leaving a lot on the table by not programming in a very formal fashion? Like I look at some of the things that, you know, Sean puts up in terms of his like programming, and it seems very strict, very regimented. You know, it's on spreadsheets. It's all mapped out. You know, I've run like blocks of like 5-3-1 and things like that in the past, and it looks similar to that in terms of how regimented it is. Whereas for me, I, rightly or wrongly, it's working for me, so I'm not changing it yet. You know, and I've never had a coach or anything like that. But I just took the sort of, not the exact way of training, but the notion of Regan Bridge, and I took his sort of philosophy, and just ran with that, and that's what I've been continuing to run with.
Use
For
that
the
philosophy,
past,
just for anyone who's not familiar.
so basically, Regan Bridge is probably pound for pound the best natural stone lifter ever, because he was consistently putting up over 200 kilo stones to sort of chest height. And his philosophy was you listen to your body and you push when you can, and then you hold back when you're not feeling it. But when the spirit and the passion sort of align, you push, and then when you don't, you just do something a bit less. And that is more or less what I do. It's total auto like regulation. It's not structured in any way. Well, and not very structured. Because what it is I used to train 4 days a week, but what I found was that as I was pushing the weights up, particularly when it got to that kind of 360 pound mark, I just couldn't recover. I just couldn't recover from the volume because I do quite long workouts, and I just couldn't recover. So I stripped it back to 3 days, and then eventually now what I've got is now that I'm pushing weights that are like up around 170 kilos, I've stripped it back to just 2 days. And what it is it's a dynamic speed volume day, and then the other day is a heavy day, and that's it really. And it's, I mean, I won't go on too much. We'll try and like split it up a bit because I could bang on about this for a long time. But that is it.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah. So
people want to hear about it, man.
Right. So that's it at the moment. We've got a light day, which is volume, and speed and being explosive and dynamic. And then the other day is building up to one heavy set maybe, and then a few little back offs. If there's any problem, if there's any little like niggle or problem, then I'll build in accessory work to address that. But it's more rehabilitative rather than like strength-based rehabilitation work. And that's it in a nutshell. But I'll elaborate more, but I'll let you guys come in.
No, I like that. That sounds awesome, man. That sounds like a lot of, because we kind of, with our weather here, we have what we just call the off season, and then the stone lifting season, right? So it's the time of year it is now. We've had snow on the ground for what, about 4 months?
Yeah, and not just a skift of snow. We're talking ankle deep.
Yeah, like
at least. Yeah.
I know, like I see videos about with people lifting with a bit of snow, which is awesome if they go outside. But like our stones are, we have 400 plus pound stones, and they're completely buried. Like it's not an option here, right?
Yeah.
So the way you're discussing your training, it sounds very similar to what we have when it is, quote unquote stone lifting season, where we'll go down to the site and I'll speak for myself here, for instance. Well, there might be a stone that I want to shoulder or to plinth or what have you. And so I'll go down with that focus in mind, and I'll build up very, very slowly. Like we have a lot of stones there, as I mentioned. And so very, very slowly, like I'm old, right? So I got to work slowly and build up the body and build up my central nervous system, because I find stone lifting can be very, very taxing on the nervous system, and your muscles might be worn, but if your nervous system isn't conditioned and isn't ready, you're not going to get the lift. So I take my time building up to the goal I have, and a lot of times I'm not going to hit it that day. But then I found what was really helpful in my stone lifting training is the ability to pivot, right? So some of the best lifts that I've ever done came after failure. So if I wanted to, say, shoulder the Achilles stone, and I just don't have it in me that day, I've pivoted to, let's say, maybe a carry, and then just however it worked out, those were some of the best carry workouts I've ever had. Or I'll drop it down and I'll do a ton of one motion volume or whatever it is, right? So that's what I like. What you're describing very, very just much sounds like you're just listening to your body. It's a lot of intuitive training. If you're having a great day, then you're going to go with it. If you're not having a great day, then you back off, maybe work on skills, or maybe work on some conditioning, and find a way to pivot is like the word I like to use, because I find that's the best way to train for stones is intuitive. Now, that is different if you have a stone lifting tour coming up and you have to train for something specific, right? Like we have Iceland coming up this year, and even when I'm having bad days, I'm going to have to drill the carries, because guess what? We could be in Iceland and having a bad day, and you got to be able to perform on your worst day. But generally speaking, it sounds like our training is quite intuitive when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, that's it, massively. And again, I'm the same. Like if I'm training for a particular stone tour or something like that, like I knew when I was going to UIST that there wasn't much shouldering going on there, so I just did huge amounts of just chest and paused work as well, and rows, and like really speedy one motions with like the sort of heavier stones, and just really built up for that, and that paid off really well. So sounds like we're quite similar then. But I suppose the difference is, and what baffles a lot of people is that apart from like just supporting Michael, because Michael's kind of moved away a little bit from the stone lifting, he's more focused on the barbell work. So I will maybe like once or twice a month I'll dabble in a little bit of barbell work to sort of keep up with him and to sort of support him, but I don't do any barbell work outside of stones, and I haven't done any proper programmed barbell work since those German volume training days. So no strict barbell work since sort of 2018, which baffles a lot of people.
And I actually love really hearing this, because we had Jamie on recently, and you and Jamie are polar opposites, because he basically won't touch stones until stone tours, and you don't touch barbells. And you guys are both extremely, extremely high level stone lifters. And so I love that, because there are just so many ways to get to whatever particular goal you have. And the two of you are the best examples that I can think of exactly that. Whereas like with my training is I do a bit of both. I do quite a lot of barbell stuff, especially in our off season, but I also, of course, am working stones. So I'm somewhere kind of in the middle of it. But yeah, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, I think what it is, it might be my psyche again, because what happens is, as I said, I've hit a PR every session, because it will be a different combination of the stone lift or the bag lift, and what happens is it just becomes an obsession in my head, and it grows like a seed. So for example, I'll wake up in the morning on light dynamic day, and I'm like, oh, the top set today is going to be triple one motion tackless, 130 kilo stone, and then I think about that, and then slowly but surely it grows, and it gets more intense throughout the day, until I get home and it just has to be done, and I've just got this like absolute like obsession. There's no labour in it. There's no, oh, this is a chore to go out and do it. It is like it has to be done. And I think that's a huge part of why I've had relative success, is because of that like kind of obsession, if you know what I mean.
I know it well, yeah.
Yeah.
To touch too on the sort of the notion of the intuitive training, because it's something too that we talked about at length with Troy Perhera, who is at Beard and Boulder on Instagram, and is someone in our local community that is an absolute mutant and push like you guys push each other regularly, but he also holds the same notion of intuitive training. And you mentioning hitting a PR every session, like one of the absolute banes of PRs is injury. And I think it is that intuitive training to know that, okay, I know I had planned on doing this and my heart was set on shouldering whatever the specific weight was, but I'm not feeling it today. I'm going to downgrade and do something else that's still beneficial, but not going to possibly force injury if you're not fully feeling up to it. Do you think that maybe your ability to have that mental flexibility has, number one, helped avoid injury, but number two, supported being able to hit those PRs?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's something else that I don't know if you would agree with, but I would always, how would I describe it? I call it quality failure. So for example, with the Rose Hearty, if I wasn't feeling it, I would still go out and attempt it, but I would obviously know exactly at the point in the lift where I'm going to bail, where it's safe to bail and I'm not going to get injured. So for example, I actually view what we call bumps, or I've seen Dave calling it hikes. I actually looked upon that as volume. So what I would do is I would go out and I'm like, right, I'm going to do 5 attempts on the Rose Hearty. I'm probably not going to get it because I'm not feeling it, but I'm going to fail in a quality way. So I'm going to do 5 lifts with 2 hikes. If it goes to shoulder, it goes to shoulder. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I would do my lifts, bump, bump, drop, bump, bump, drop. And I looked at the bumps as volume because that's 10 bumps, And then the next time I might do 5 attempts, but I might do 3 bumps, which is like for the first 3 repetitions, I'd do 3 bumps. So that's 9 plus the next 2, I'd only do 2, which is 4, which is accruing volume in that upper chest position. And that's the way I kind of thought of it until such a point as I was doing 5 attempts with 5 bumps, which would be 25 bumps in that in those sets. And if you're not shouldering it at that point, then there's probably something wrong. So that I did that over a hugely long period of time, and I never ever got to the 5 bumps for 5 attempts because I didn't need to, because I'd shouldered it by then. But I just kept going, just accruing that volume in the upper chest position, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, man. And so, like when I'm going to oversimplify stone lifting here, but I kind of break it down to 3 separate things. There's obviously strength, because you need strength to be good at stone lifting. You need technique, so that's the second one. And the third is grit, right? And what you're describing is, of course, you're building strength. Of course, you're building technique. But if you're getting to the point where you're pushing failure, you are training grit. And the development of grit is one of the most underutilized things, but also one of the most important things that I've found in my training to help me level up, so to speak. Like when I went from a 325 stone to a 380 pound stone, it was a very short period of time. And I did not get that much stronger per se, right? Because that's a huge gap in weight. But I got a lot tougher. I developed grit. I became very comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and the uncomfortable concept of having a stone on my chest sucking the air out of it. The same concept happened this past summer for stone carrying, is I got really comfortable in that horrendously uncomfortable position, and that built my grit, pardon me. So I'm curious if that's maybe, because I wanted to ask you, when you were discussing earlier, you kind of got caught up on a stone and failed it for, I think, sorry, did you say it was like about 6 months or something it took you to actually shoulder it? What do you think it was between, strength, grit, and technique that allowed you to get past the barrier of that stone?
Exactly as you've described there. It was, I mean, you watch a lot of big guys. Even if you watch the Arnolds at the weekend, I was watching the stone to shoulder, and everyone's confident to here. Everyone's super fast. The technique's flawless until they get to here, and then as soon as it goes above that sort of high chest nipple line, you see there's a breakdown. You see they just start. Even the strong guys can muscle through it, yeah, but you can just see there's an unfamiliarity there, and they're not comfortable. And I think that is key. If you watch Thor like speed reps that 400-pound stone to chest, and then as soon as it gets past his shoulder, I think it was on his second rep, he got all unsteady. And I think that's what it is. It's just hanging out in those horribly uncomfortable positions, and that's what I've built my training on, and I love that position now. That's like my strongest position. I would say probably I'm still weakest from the floor, but upper chest, put a stone on there forever. That's why I don't know if I invented it just for a mess around, but that's why I do the limbo rock now, because I'm just like, hang out there, enjoy it, have fun with it, be whimsical with it, have that stone hanging out or the sandbag hanging out in your chest for a long time, because that's the only way you're going to improve your shouldering, is if you get exposed, as you say, Dave, with that time under tension in that upper chest uncomfortable position. It's the only way to do it.
That playfulness that you clearly have, like obviously you're able to be playful stone lifting because you are so strong, but do you think maybe the ability to be playful is something that has also helped keep your attention to stone lifting more so than, it's hard to be playful doing a deadlift, right? It's hard to be playful if you're doing a WOD or whatever type CrossFit. I mean, I'm sure that, they add variations, but do you think that ability to be innovative and constantly sort of adjust your approach or find new interesting ways to lift the same stone is what's also helped keep your attention? Obviously hitting a PR every day helps too.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like even just doing like a spinneroni, getting it on the shoulder, like you see the Bass guys do. I just copied them. Shoulder, hang on a minute here. And again, you could count that as like a little PR. It's something you haven't done before. So I shouldered the 175 stone, the big block, and I just went, well, I've shouldered it before. Let's see if I can do a 360. So I did a 360. Or like I shouldered a big sandbag recently and did a little dance. So it's something different. It's something new. As we call it, it's the moldy behaviour. It's just being goofy, like goofing off, doing that kind of stuff. It's just the moldy mindset. Absolutely.
See, you had made a comment, and I wrote it down here because I wanted to ask you it as well, because I am I'm definitely at the point now in my stone lifting game where my ability to get a stone to my lap is what's holding me back, right? Because I'm basically now at the point where I've been able to shoulder my max to chest. And so I've stepped back quite a bit this winter and tried to build what I hope is going to carry over to my strength from the floor, because I only have access to a few stones in my garage. But I'm just curious, and I think you've already answered this, is do you find for yourself that that's also kind of where you're at, where your ability just to get it into your lap is now what's holding you back, as opposed to, like, just discussing with the guys, the pro strongmen, they can get probably most things into the lap, but to actually get up to shoulder is what actually stops them.
Yeah, I mean that's the feeling I've got. Although I have improved because I have worked on it. I've done like lots of like rows and heavy plate lifts, and then I just got a relatively new stone that's about the same weight as the big Dinny stone. And I did like a finisher. I did a set of 10 just pickups, things like that. Just building that strength. A lot of taculus, atlas stones as well to try and bring up that grip strength. But I definitely do still feel I don't know if it's warranted, but I still feel like that is my weak area, especially with the kind of smoother stones. I do think that's a big challenge. Although, as I say, I was really happy with the way the Glenorchy stone was moving to lap, because I did struggle with that the first time I went, and now that just flies up, and that's 177.5. So that's really promising. But then it does have quite good grips. But like my final goal for this stone lifting journey is the Cricket stone down in Wales, and I'm terrified of it because it looks, and from what I've seen and from what I've heard, it just looks as if it's my absolute nightmare, because it's the same weight as that Glenorchy, but it's super round and egg shaped. And I think that's what's going to happen. I'm either going to go down and it's going to go to shoulder, or it's not going to come off the ground. Or it's going to come off the ground and I'm not going to be able to lap it, I think. And I'm just terrified of that. So I'm making it a kind of loose goal, because it's not really feasible to make it a super serious goal for me, because it's 10 hours away. And from what I've heard, when you book your lift, it's at the discretion of the people who look after it. And if they've got a busy schedule that day, you've only got maybe 20 minutes to try and learn that thing. And it's like 20-hour round trip for that is just
opportunity. Yeah.
It terrifies me.
Have you played around with the clasp style at all, or the cold start?
Well, this is the thing that I've been putting it off, but because I want to go and try the cricket either in spring break or in the summer break, and I need that in my arsenal. I think I need that clasp, because I don't think I've got the wingspan to lift it sideways like Mark Jeans did. I think it's going to have to be the way, like, I think who was it did it recently?
Ryan did it that way, I believe.
Oh yeah, Ryan did, and then Jesus Jimmy, he got an amazing clasp and
he's very strong in that position.
Yeah, whereas I'm terrible. I hate that position.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to kick my own butt and just be like, right, let's give this a go and start trying the clasp nonsense.
Or I got stumpy little arms and it just doesn't work well for me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm built for bench press, short arms, so I'm not built for this spaghetti clasping nonsense.
How tall are you, Andy? Like, what's your height and weight?
I'm 5'11", and last time I weighed myself, I'm about 108, 108 kilos, so just under 110.
Yeah, okay. So pretty thick dude then.
Yeah, but don't have the wingspan.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm always jealous of those big guys.
Yeah.
You also do a lot of work with sandbags, and is there something? Because I got a 300-pound sandbag. It's one of my Christmas gifts, and it's an absolute bastard. Like, it is very, very hard to get that thing, especially if you're talking like lengthwise off the ground. Cold starting it, I can get it up, but it's very, very difficult. Is there a unique challenge that you find sandbags present to you that's different than you could get from a stone, or what is it about sandbags that you enjoy that has you mix it into your arsenal?
I don't know. It was the same just with like stones in general. I got a sandbag because it was convenient, and the first one I went for after I did the Braven, I think it was a 120 kilo sandbag. I just loved it. I just loved the fact that you could be really like reckless. I always talk about being reckless with it, because with stones, like I was doing stones with Michael just on Tuesday, and I chinned myself, you know, and then I got the back of my head was sore and all the rest of it. But with a sandbag, you can like hit yourself with it, you can throw it around, and it doesn't do as much damage. And also, I always, some people would argue it's maybe easier, I don't know, but I always slightly underfill the bag and then put like weight plates in, so it like moves around, and I find that like absorbs power on the hikes, which then when you go to a stone and there's no movement and all your power's being put into the stone, then that's got good carryover, and I've always just enjoyed that.
Would you say, not to sort of distill it down to something so simple, but then the sandbag, because you can be more reckless, it affords you the ability to focus more maybe on strength and power versus having to also mix in an equal amount of technique like you would with a stone, so you don't hurt yourself?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say you're spot on there. The fact that you can, to a point, brute force a sandbag much more easily than you could a very particular style of stone. Like, for example, the Glen Ochil, that is the most unbalanced thing to shoulder, you know, because it's like that triangle shape and one side's just massively heavy. And it was only through my experience of lifting other unbalanced stones that I knew exactly what was going to happen on that last hike, that last bump. I knew it was going to try and buck off. So I did my last bump and I knew that all the weight was out to the side and it was going to buck, so I knew I was going to have to control it. So I bumped and then leaned the other way and then just grabbed it for all it was worth, and it staggered me and all that. And then I got it to shoulder, but if I hadn't had that experience and I'd only lifted sandbags, it would have caught me off guard. So yeah, sandbags, great for building strength and things like that, but then probably less so in terms of the finesse that you need for the natural stones, I would say.
It makes a ton of sense. Do you, for your training, do you, again, just go by the feel of the day when you were to pick up a sandbag over a stone, or how do you basically work that in?
So I try and balance it, and I always do all three every workout. I always do natural, atlas, and sandbag every workout for the warm-ups. You know, like you described, Dave, where you're priming your nervous system, you're building up to that top set, that big stone or bag. So I always do all three, and then I try and balance it, but then again, it's back to that intuitiveness. If I'm like, this is a sandbag day, then it's a sandbag day. If I'm like, nah, it feels horrible, the Atlas stones are feeling a lot better, then I'll do that, or vice versa. If the stones are feeling good, I'll do a natural stone. So I try and balance it. I'll force myself every now and again. Like, I sometimes do neglect the heavy sandbags because my passion is the natural stones, and I will be like, no, you're doing sandbags whether you like it or not. But usually it's more intuitive.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious if you're similar to I am. Like, I find that my stone lifting workouts are kind of the opposite of my barbell workouts, because I'm actually the strongest at the end of a stone lifting workout versus a barbell workout at the very end. I'm burnt out, but I just find, like, if my ability goes up and up and up and up during my stone lifting workouts, because I'm just slowly priming that central nervous system for what needs to happen. Do you find that similar for you, that you're kind of peaking at the end of the workout, or do you peak early and then just do a little more accessory, as you'd mentioned, at the end?
How long do you last?
Yeah. How...
It's a bit of a mix. So yeah, it's a bit of a mix. Quite inconsistent there. Sometimes I will just go in and I will cold start. Like when I got my new 188 to chest, I've had it to chest twice. It's so unbelievably unbalanced. And I've had it to chest twice, and the second time I just went, I'm not messing around. I'm not wasting any energy. I'm just going to go in and cold start it. Now, I was like, how's that going to go on 100, nearly 190 kilos? And I got it.
Well,
But then other days, you know, I'll do like a 2 hour session, and I'll, as you say, I'll peak and get a really good lift of the main weight at the end. So it's a bit random with me. I'm a bit inconsistent with that. It just depends on the day, really.
no, that's fair. Yeah. Listening to your body, as we discussed before. It's smart.
But with barbells, probably just because I'm inexperienced, when I'm doing like some barbell work with Michael, I get worse. Yeah, definitely. I get worse towards the end.
Yeah. It's pretty common, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In addition to sort of having your days, so you have your heavy days and you're mixing in with your more dynamic or explosive days. Are there other accessory movements that you do? Maybe like sit on the couch, like doing wrist work or whatever it might be. I've been doing a lot more work on like QL strength that you do to help, or is it all kind of come as a byproduct of the stone lifting or sandbag lifting that you're doing?
I think a lot of it's byproduct. I'm not huge on accessories. I'll build them in when I feel there's a weakness, or as I said before, I'll build them in when I feel there's maybe an injury on its way. But it's not a huge priority. I think it's a lot of it comes from, well, it did come from failed attempts. You know, as I said, sometimes with that 160, that 360 pound stone, I might have picked that thing up like, I don't know, like 25 times during a workout, just feeling it and failing it and getting it in the right position and moving it around and things like that. But in terms of accessory work, not hugely, no. If my grip's lagging behind and I'm struggling with the Atlas stones, I'll do like tackless holds and things like that. Or if, like, for Uist, for example, I did some like plate picks and things like that. But no, not huge on accessories.
Any like mobility work or anything like that, or that all just kind of comes with the training?
I used to do a lot, but now no. I'll go straight in. I'll grab my 114 sandbag, and I'll lap it, and I'll just sit in the hole and rock around for a minute or two.
Yeah.
And then I'll do like maybe like 5 chests, something like that. Few rows. So yeah, and a minute. Yeah, loosen up the hips. A few rows, a couple of one motions to chest, a couple of one motions to shoulder. That's me primed, ready for whatever's next.
It's awesome. Do you have any goals for historical stones? Like, is there any more around Scotland you want to do, or do you have any? I mean, you mentioned the Welsh and the Cricket stone, but is there anything other than that you got your eyes set on?
No, that'll be it. That's the only thing I've got, and as I said, it's quite loose. I set myself 2 goals this year, which was to shoulder the Glen which I've done, and then the other one is to shoulder the Cricket and be the second to do that from Mark Jeans doing it. So that would be lovely. But again, it's a very loose goal because of the time involved in getting to it, and that just does not suit me. Because I was talking to Jacob Hetherington, and he was saying that he felt when he went for his lift he was a bit rushed, and that just doesn't suit me. Like the big stone up on Uist, I can't remember the exact name of it because it's like a Gaelic name, but it's the one with the red paint on it, and only one guy had stood up with it before. So like I know John Liftstones Repeat,
yeah.
he had lapped it,
yeah.
And then Jamie Gorian had lapped it, and there's a guy called Will Holiday, and he had stood up with it. So I was like, I'd love to be second, and that was that. Ticked that goal off, and I was really, really super pleased with that. But other than that, there's nothing really firing me up in terms of historics.
Yeah, no,
overseas like that, like Iceland or Ireland or Japan.
See, this is the thing. I'm a bit of a strange fish. I'm not a big fan of traveling, so I don't know. I like the notion of it, but I think the point I was trying to make about those US stones was I spent about 3 hours on the first go at that stone with the red paint on it. I think it's like 187 kilos, and I spent about 3 hours. Because I'd go in for a go and then it would rain, and I had to run into the car, wait for the rain shower to go off, run back out, have another go, get massively frustrated. I was like, I'm going to give up stones, I'm done, all that kind of stuff after like 3 hours of this in and out and not being able to do it and trying to get the thing dry. And then I went back to camp, fueled up, and then the sun came out, went back, got my chest. But that whole process was probably about, it was the best part of a day, it was like 5-6 hours. So if I'm going down 10-hour drive down to this Cricket and I've only got half an hour, that's just going to destroy me. I'm going to be so frustrated. So I have to hold on to this notion that it's a loose go. I'll go down, I'll see how it goes, but I can't expect too much because it's just not my style.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. That's a long way to go for potentially only 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think Ryan was the same, wasn't he? He jumped straight off a plane, didn't he, and went and got his lift, and because he could have probably shouldered it like if he was perfectly fresh. If he could have that stone in his gym and like warm up with it, he'd probably get it no problem. But jet lagged, probably limited time on it. You get your attempt, and then that's it.
Yeah, it's a whole different animal having to do a stone tour or something like that. Like it's tricky to come in somewhat cold, right? It's
Mhm.
and yeah, Ryan I think was there actually to coach somebody, and so he just went to that stone as an offshoot of being in Wales coaching.
Yeah. So well, but other than that, yeah, I mean, I like the notion. I mean, I will probably go to Iceland. I will probably, because I quite like the idea of doing the Dritvik stone. You know, get that to shoulder. That'd be quite nice, and then go and have a go with the Husafell. But other than that, there's not any other ones that really fire me up. That I'm like, oh yeah, love to go and do that. You know, um,
Completely fair.
same with some of the Irish ones, some of those monsters. It's just, I don't know, it's just not my style. I mean, all respect to the guys who are lifting those things, it's insane. But I'm just like, oh, traveling all the way over there, and these massive like things that are like what are they, like 250 kilos, and you
Crazy.
get it that off, the ground. And again, fair dues, if that's what you love, that's great. But that's just not really my style.
Is that sort of part of the appeal for you? What drives you is stones that are shoulderable based on either size or shape, and so like something that's maybe destined to just be a half lift just doesn't really entice you that much.
Yeah, I suppose that's my blessing and my curse, is that ever since the Braving, when it got to shoulder, hand away, balance, conquer the weight, that was it. It was just that passionate, that movement. It just, that's what fired me up. Half lifts, not so much. Chest to a point. As I say, I can see maybe it depends what happens with the cricket. I don't know what's going to happen after that. If I do get it, then to me that is the pinnacle of historic shoulderable stones. There's not any other historic stones that I can think of that weight that a shoulder lift is like acceptable or the done thing. So that's kind of the end of the historic shoulder journey, if you like. So after that, I might fire up and I might be like, yeah, let's go, because I do quite like the chests. Like that one that I won the comp with. That's one of my favourite lifts. That huge, massive, big 195-ish. And then again, that one with the red paint, I really loved that. That was great as well. So yeah, maybe, or I don't know. I mean, I do now and again, like once a month or so, I'll go and do Strongman Sunday with a few of my friends, and I quite like that as well. So maybe cut a little bit, maybe do some like natty Strongman under 105, something like that. I don't know.
That was gonna be my next
We'll have to,
question. Like
yeah.
competitions, because even stone lifting, there's so many fantastic stone lifting competitions happening in Scotland now, like with the McGregor Stone Lifting Games, Scotland's strongest stone lifter, Britain's strongest stone lifter. Like, do any of those pique your interest at all?
So when they first started, yeah, I mean, I did them. I've done, I think, 4 comps. But a bit like I saw John Gibb put up in his YouTube the other day. That's kind of the point I hit quite early on. I was like, this isn't really for me, or it doesn't feel like it's for me at the moment, because I was so fixated on shoulder layered Vorlich, shoulder big rusty, and then take it from there, and it just got in the way. It became a chore. Oh, I have to go and set up quarter of a ton on the pins and try and walk with them and destroy my thumbs. Great. And I was just like, no, this is just taken away. And then I was like sore and recovering, and I was like, that's just taken away from my main goal. And so it's just been eye on the prize for the past maybe just over a year. I haven't really been thinking much about comps.
What was the sentiment from John Gibbs' YouTube video?
John was saying exactly the same thing. He was just a bit of a change of direction, less focus on comps, more focus on Iceland stone tours, things like that. He loves his stones as well, so maybe less focus on the competitions, more focus on travelling abroad, doing stone tours, things like that.
That's kind of where I am too. Like my stone lifting journey, if you want to call it that, although that's always a lame way to frame anything, but started with local stone lifting competitions, and that was kind of my goals, and I loved it. And now I really don't have a lot of drive for that. Like I was fortunate to be invited to World's Strongest Stone Lifter in F4 Power Week in Norway, and I politely declined because we're going to Iceland, and it's like, no, like I want to go do that. That's the competitive side, like I don't feel I have anything left to prove to myself, first of all. But I do want to be involved in these historical traditions, and that's what's really driving me is that, right? So I completely understand your sentiment is the point I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one, but I think you'll feel it yourself. Like for me, it's all internalized. It's all me versus me. There is a little bit of me versus Michael, and as I've spoken to you about, there's a little bit of me versus you. Because you put up that 400 stone, and I'm like, well, Dave's done it, got to do it as well. So I loaded up the my big stone to just over 400 and went and did that. So it's a little bit of that, but it's more inspirational rather than competition.
I completely agree.
But for me, it's all just internalized. I'm not competing with anyone. I'm going to go down to Wales, hopefully get it, and that is all just for me. It's not to try and one up anyone else or try and beat anyone else. It's just that's what I want to do because that is the logical end of my shouldering journey, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's like for the one-upmanship side of thing too. Like there was, I coined the phrase when I was involved in steel bending, where it's like a friendly one-upmanship, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing because that's how the progress of a sport or a pastime, whatever you want to call this, that's how it works. Is somebody does one thing, somebody sees it's possible, and then somebody else does it, and it's not to be like, haha, I'm better than you. It's just to go, okay, am I able to complete that task like he did? And that's how we push each other. And I think it's friendly, and I think it's out of respect, and I think it's awesome.
So someone proves it's doable, and then you think, can I do it?
Yeah,
right?
like, hey, sweet. Now it's my turn to try, right? Like, that's awesome, I think.
Yeah, I mean, this stems that. I mean, that can be said for just about any sport. Like, I did a little bit of like extreme sports when I was younger, like a little bit of skateboarding, a little bit of inline, a little bit of snowboarding, these types of things. And you would do like games of horse.
Yeah, right. Yeah, of course.
So to me, it's like that. It's like that friendly kind of. All right, well, you've done that, and
You get a letter.
Dave's done a weird stand-up thing. Okay, Dave's done a box squat and all this, and then I'll do a limbo rock. Do you think you could do that? It's just a kind of friendly kind of one-upmanship, which I think's really good. I mean, I think like Liam Brown in that he was doing all these weird like trying to lift a sandbag with one hand, and then I saw like John and a couple other guys where they were like monkey see, monkey do, and you've got them trying to lift sandbags with one hand. It's just a bit of fun, it's that goofiness.
It's awesome.
It's good fun.
I love that stuff, man.
Yeah, you need a lot more of that. It's brilliant.
And
Keeps things interesting.
It is. It keeps things interesting for sure.
The other thing too, just I wanted to touch on with your goal to sort of you're very shoulder training focused right now, and it's something that and so that sort of deters you from thinking about doing competitions because then you're going to have to sort of vary your training and everything's your body can only take so much and recover so quickly, and you only have so much time to train. And that's something that I've found too with us looking to Iceland. Like I see people, I've got these sandbags. I'd love to work on getting better at shouldering, but right now I wake up and I think about carrying the Husafell. Now I don't know how far I'm going to carry it, but I think about I want to carry the Husafell. What do I need to do to get myself the best chance possible, given my strength and my experience and the time we have to do that? And so my training has to focus around my grip strength, my wrist and my forearm strength, my hips, my glutes, that sort of thing. And so it's such a you almost have to lock yourself in mentally to say, I see someone over here doing something that I'm interested in and I think I can do and I want to do, but right now my goal is this specific kind of lift or this specific stone. And that sort of builds the foundation for how you are able to spend all of your training time.
So just an interesting point to touch on that. I actually haven't told you this is, so when I was in California, I was very fortunate to be invited on the Mark Bell's Power Project, which was super cool. And when I was down there, I'd been chatting with this dude named Chandler Parsons. He's this just unbelievably strong fella from California, and he's coached by Josh Bryant from Jailhouse Strong and Tom Haviland. And so him and I met up and we were having a chat, and he had asked Tom Haviland, like, why don't you compete, right? And goes exactly to what you're saying is Tom made the point that if you're competing, you have to train for the things that are in that competition and not for the things that you want to get better at. Right. And so I just think that's a really good point. It seems to also go in line with what you're talking about, Andy, where you want to be just the absolute best shouldering machine you can be. And that's certainly what you are. And to go in a competition, and that's something for myself as well. I'm focusing a lot less on shouldering. And again, more on how do I bring a better package to Iceland? How do I get stronger off the floor? How do I get stronger at carrying? How do I tolerate the discomfort of carrying? And so Yeah, no, I kind of forgot to tell you that, and you just kind of sparked that thought in my mind with that point.
It's interesting too, because all of those, and maybe that's why stone lifting is such a different thing to so many different people, because it can be. Because if someone's in the gym working on deadlifting, they're deadlifting. If someone's in the gym doing shoulder press, they're shoulder pressing. But you can be ab lifting, you can be working to lap, you can be working to chest, you can be working to shoulder, you can be doing overhead presses, but it all is stone lifting, which allows it to be many different things for many different people, and everyone can find a style of stone lifting that suits their fancy and keeps them entertained.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I have dabbled, obviously, in the competition. I've dabbled with stone pressing, so that might be something else that I could look to after I've done, hopefully done the cricket. Might have a little go at pressing some of the lighter stones. You know, a lot of people would stop at the inverse, so that might be something to try and do. I don't know. Maybe give that a go. We'll see.
Just one last thing I actually wanted to mention to you about your shouldering is you are really good at shouldering really ugly stones. Like,
I'm always very jealous of you because I'm like, oh my god, where does he get these? He's got this 400-pounder that he can clasp, whereas the things I've got, they're all like unwieldy, rough, wide, no weight. I mean, well, I say that. I mean, I've got one that's an anomaly. It's the 169 kilo one. It's quite nice. It's quite smooth. It's good for reps. But all my other ones are just nightmare. In fact, one of the worst ones is just the 148, the Dawnstone. It's it's just so wide and horrific. So I'm always very jealous of your stones.
But I just like it makes you a better lifter being able to do what you're doing with such ugly stones, right? Like it makes we have one called the Devil's Potato, and I might attempt to shoulder this year after Iceland. I have a different technique in mind for it, but it's a very big, very ugly. I literally just don't think it will fit on my shoulder. Like, so I'm not getting my hopes up because it's just so big, so wide, and there's just not space there. But yeah, you shoulder some pretty ugly stones, so it's impressive stuff, man.
Yeah, I mean that's it. I do enjoy the challenge of that because unfortunately where we live, it's lowland and there's not many large rivers or anything like that. So the river load is all really small because we're like at the bottom of the river course. So anything that is lying about is usually horrible, angular, nasty granite that's been ploughed to the side of a field. And that's all we've got to kind of work with because some of the stones that you see like Jamie collecting or some of the guys down further south, those stones are amazing. They're like all lovely and round and all the rest of it. And as I say, I'm still in the market. I really want to try and find this, your Devil's Potato kind of weight, but nice and fairly rounded that I can do reps with. Because my heaviest stone I've got just now, that 190, the 188, it's just, it's horrific. It's like pink granite, but it's so rough, and it just takes its pound of flesh. I mean, I've been trying my best to get a sponsorship from a company that does tape, because the amount of tape I go through, because it's like a couple of lifts and you're down to the last layer of skin, so you'll see me using quite a lot of tape. It's just horrific. But I suppose, if you're training in those conditions, when you get a nice round stone, it's just so much easier.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that you don't really enjoy traveling. Fortunately for you, you do live in Scotland, so some of the coolest and best stones in the world are there, and with interesting, rich history. How many stone tours have you been on? And is there a favorite tour you've had, or even a favorite historical stone lift that sits really prominently in your mind?
I mean, I've been on a load of tours. I really, one that kind of does stick in mind. I mean, I could say like I was lucky enough to go on the Martin's Leases one, where it was insane. Because at the time only 4 people had shouldered the Advolic. I was number 4, and then I think it was like Matt Jones. Then it was Martin's Leases. Then it was Chris Beetham, and then Connor Curran did it as well. So that was just insane. So that was really cool for that reason. But then another one I did recently was probably the biggest stone tour, and it was the first stone tour that I'd kind of led along with Michael. So like Jamie does these stone tours, and he's kind of like the it's not like a strict leader, but he's the guy who's organised it. He's the one who's kind of taking people round, and I really enjoyed that. It was a massive tour, and there was internationals on it. It was, people from England. There was a guy from Malaysia there, so it was really, really cool to take them around and be that kind of guide and show them how to lift and tell them a little bit about the history. So that one kind of sticks in mind when I was the kind of lead. And I got to share because I love that. I love sharing the stones with people. I love sharing the knowledge, the history, how to lift them. I just love that, and I love when people come here. That's why, similar to you guys, I've set up along with Michael and John and Jake. We've set up like a kind of stone tour around here, and I just love it when people come. And great, fantastic. Even if I don't get to go and see it live, I'll take their picture, post it, another lift. Because those two, the Bullers of Buchan, they're actually getting more traffic than a lot of historics now. They've been lifted a lot. I think it's because they're so accessible. It's like a lovely 110 kilo round stone, and then there's another stone there which is 60 kilos. So that's a great sort of novice or someone who's never lifted before can have a go at that. And that's my passion. I just love sharing the stones with people.
I actually love to hear that, man, because that way, if people are interested in stone lifting, they can go give that a shot, and then it almost saves the wear and tear on the historical stones for the people that really are interested in the history, right? So I just love hearing that, man. I think that's fantastic. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, and something I want to touch. We talked about it a lot with Jamie, but someone who has organized stone tours, especially with people coming internationally, do you feel added pressure and ownership over how the stones are treated, whether it's the stones are treated in general because they are Scottish stones, or how they're treated on your stone tours? Because we have seen, I don't want to say a lot of abuse, but maybe people who were not fully understanding how important some of these stones are, either to people in Scotland or even from a historical perspective. So when you're on those stone tours, does that weigh on you, or you just expect that people who are coming are going to see you lift and try to emulate how you treat them?
Generally, and I spoke to Jamie about this, because although a lot of the tours have gone well, that one tour in particular, there was one guy on it, and he just wasn't getting the message, and it was getting to the point where it wasn't just myself, but it was also other guys in his party were like literally throwing the mat and at his legs, because he was just dropping it from shoulder height. And it was like, try and land it on the mat.
This is the tour with...
There was the international tour. Yeah. So it was a great tour, but there was one guy, and he was trying to shoulder, and it was just like I described. He was the biggest guy, most muscular guy, tallest guy, and he was seeing like some Michael shouldering the Advorlik, and he was like, "I'm stronger, I can do it." You can tell there was a bit of that going on in the psyche, and he was going bright red, gassing out, and then dropping the stone and missing the mat and things. And I said to Jamie, I was like, "What do you do?" I mean, because that's what I'm saying. It was like such a nice stone tour, brilliant. Apart from that one couple, it was a couple. I mean, I'm not saying it was like constant. It was just a couple of times he was like pushing himself to the absolute limit and then dropping it. And I said to Jamie, I was like, "What do you do? Do you get assertive? Do you, actually have a word and then potentially blow up the entire atmosphere of the tour, and suddenly you're a stone Karen, and you're giving people a row type of thing? It's like, who are you? Who are you to give me a row? These stones are open for anyone to lift. They're not looked after by any historical body because they can't be, because they're movable. So who are you? These are stones. Who cares? Or do you just try your very best? And I think that's all you can do, like what we did, which is ask really nicely, place the mat directly in front of the gentleman, and say, you might want to try and guide the stone down onto the mat as opposed to the concrete car park, and that's it. And you can walk away with your head held high going, I tried everything, but I'm not willing to cross that line and have a go, and like have a pop, because you're just going to ruin the tour for everybody. And again, who are you to say? It's a difficult one. I don't know what you guys think.
I think you're bang on, man. You're doing everything right. Like, you can't literally force him to drop it on there, but if you've asked him to put the stone down on the mat that's directly in front of him and he can't connect those dots, that's not, like you said, you've done what you can do.
Yeah, I think if it was to cross a line into like blatant like slamming,
Yeah.
like you could see that it was effort and it was absolute maximum RP
Yeah.
10,
Going to failure. Yeah.
and he's going to fail and he's dropping it. You're like, okay, if it was like, yeah, fine,
The Paul Dwyer, basically.
yeah, then I'd probably say I can't be here. I'm gonna have to walk away. Thanks for coming, but I can't be any part of this, and I'd probably walk away. But I think that's all you can really do at that point if it is like proper blatant abuse.
I mean,
You know?
you like you did. You try to lead by example, and you try to make it as easy as possible for the person to respect the stone. And in instances where people are still not getting the message, I think, fortunately, there's the good and bad of social media. The good thing is that we can see people's awesome lists. The bad thing is, well, also I guess the good thing is that we can see their not so great lists. And it's such a small community that word does get around. And unfortunately, for a lot of people who choose to continually misuse stones, they're just limiting their opportunities for future stone tours, especially international ones, right? Like it's people are not going to be welcoming you if they're have to constantly be worried, like wreck your experience because you're constantly worried that this person is going to damage a historical stone. So it is a bit self-limiting in that aspect as well. So
Yeah, I think so. But as I say, it's been overwhelmingly positive, and that's one example. And again, it wasn't every single stone, you know. So I think people do get the message, and it was really nice to see that members of his party were also, you know, sort of backing us up and everything and like that as well. So it's one of those things, bit of an anomaly.
yeah.
It happens, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
So you're going after the cricket stone. So that's spring break or summer. What does the next, if you could map out the perfect next year for yourself in stone lifting, what would it look like? We're talking to you again next year. What have you accomplished?
It would be to find that mystical 400-pounder.
Treasure hunt.
Yeah, to the treasure hunt again. Shameless, I'll ask anybody listening to this if you've got this perfect round 400-pounder
And a forklift.
somewhere in Scotland and a forklift, let me know. Liam's actually found a big pile of stones that look pretty good, so he's going to go and have a look at those, see if he can find one, because I was very jealous. I don't know if you follow a guy, he's into his kettlebells, he's lifted the Dinny stones, can't remember his surname, German guy called Sven.
Sven, are you good?
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. I was
really
like,
good.
oh my god! I was like, oh my goodness, look at this! And he's going stone shopping, and they've got like a grabber, like a fairground, grabbing stones, put them in a pallet. A forklift comes and puts it in the van. I'm like, where's this service in Scotland? You know, this is supposed to be like, yeah, this is supposed to be Stoneland. You know, why don't we have that here? So yeah, that would be great if I could find, because as I say, I've done the 400, but again, I don't count it. Like, I've got that in my bio, like my shoulder and like what I've done and whatnot. And my big goal, my lifetime goal, was to get 170 kilos on all three: Atlas stone, sandbag, and natural stone. And I've exceeded that. I've done 180 bag. I've done the stone with plates on it, which doesn't. I don't know if we count that, but I've done that, and then I've done 173 Atlas stone. I would like to do a 180 Atlas stone to shoulder. That would be nice. And try and get them all over 180 now. That'd be quite good. But I'll need to find that mystical natural stone.
Keep
that's
searching,
nice,
man.
and
That's a lot of fun. It's the hunt for it, man.
Because oh man, that haggard block. I call it the Inverbury stone. And it's actually amazing to shoulder. It is the easiest 175 kilo you will ever shoulder. Yeah. Oh, it's just like a big block, but my goodness, it's rough.
Yeah,
it tries to take your nipple off every time you shoulder it. And then that was one of the variations I've been building into my training, just to overload and just to keep things progressing, which is the shoulder, like you've done, shoulder, lap, shoulder eccentric, and then shoulder. And that thing, oh my goodness, the pain in the legs because it's all angular and then grinding down the chest. I was like, nah, I need to find something a bit nicer. So
hopefully this time. To train with.
Yeah, exactly. Which is that the 169. The 169 is fantastic. It's if I could keep one stone, it would be either my 133, which is the Mar stone. That was one of the first stones I ever got to train on. It's amazing. And then the 169, which is made out of exactly the same granite, nice and smooth. It's brilliant. So yeah, just to answer your question, then this time next year, hopefully have lifted the cricket. If I just chest it after a 10-hour drive, I'll just have to suck that up, you know, because I can't camp out there forever annoying people for, you know, hours on end. I'll get my chance and that's it. Other than that, hopefully line up a 180 Atlas stone to shoulder at some point. And then hopefully I've found the magical, like, sort of 405 pounder stone to train on that doesn't destroy my body every time I lift it. And then I have to go through like 20 pounds worth of tape every week, you know. So that would be quite nice. That would be quite good.
I wanted to make sure we covered some questions, and we probably, over the course of the chat, addressed them, but maybe just to distill it down into specific answers. So these are coming in from some of the folks who listen or have been on the podcast. So Alex Burleson, Stone Daddy, who was a lightweight StonelyFans winner, said, for Andy, do you have any specific technique tips you have for shouldering heavy stones? So if we could even just say, what is one specific technique you have found or enacted that has allowed you to break through that plateau to shouldering massive stones?
Well, the one that's popping into my head is finding and getting comfortable with an appropriate back angle that is in between being too upright and then being dangerously lean back, finding that middle ground where more or less you can do the limbo rock. So I would suggest for anybody that would like to shoulder heavy stones, it's finding that magical, safe but tolerable back angle where you are not fighting gravity as much. So it's a bit like, I suppose everybody will have a slightly different position with a log, everybody have a slightly different bar position with the bench press, or slightly different stance width with the deadlift. So it's finding that perfect back angle for you that's going to allow you to shoulder heavy sandbags and stones and getting really comfortable in that position. Because I don't need to think about it anymore. I'm sure you'll be the same. I used to, like, when I first started, I was like, oh, I don't want to lean back too far. Oh, I might hurt my back. Or if I lean back too far, it'll fall off my shoulder. Or if I'm leaning too far forward, it's going to fall down. Once you just know and you can just lock into that back angle and be totally comfortable with it, and you know you're not going to compromise yourself, you know you're not going to hurt yourself, and that is just your angle, just like your stance width, I'd say that was the key for me. I don't know if you guys would agree.
100%.
If that's a good,
I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
It's a great answer, and it actually helps, guide us right into our second question, which is from Tales of Stone and Iron, and it was, how can a man fold so much with so much weight and not break?
Again, it's extremely slow progressive overload over 3 years. This is one of my top comments I get on YouTube is, how can you do that and not snap your back? You're going to end up snapping your back. You know, we were joking about making songs about it and all the rest of it with AI. And I suppose it's just, it's progressive overload. And when I first started, as I said, I had all the gear and no idea. So I used to wear, if you go back to my 120 sandbag lift, I used to wear a belt. I used to wear an underbelt and a belt, and I used to, lean back into the belt like you would with a log and all the rest of it. And then slowly but surely, I used to wear a wrist wrap, I used to wear an elbow wrap, and slowly but surely as I progressed, I just started taking away those stabilizers until I wasn't wearing a belt, I wasn't wearing any kit, and now I'm absolutely fine. But it's slowly progressing. As I said, I started off with 80 kilos, and it's taken 3 years of very consistent, I would say over 500 sessions probably. So over 500 sessions to add that 100 kilos onto that 80 kilo implement. And I just feel like my back, you'll probably feel the same, my back is just totally, I know bulletproof's a bit of a strong word, but it's like fortified. And like my spinal erectors are just like solid, my upper back's solid, and I just feel like, unless I do something really, really, really reckless and dodgy, I'm going to be fine. And I suppose with that 500 sessions, it's built up the strength and fortified the back and the posterior chain, but then it's also built up that experience of knowing when to bail, like I was talking about earlier on with the quality failure. There'll be some days I'm fatigued and I'm not feeling it, and I know if I do one more hike, it's gonna, it's not going to be right for me, so I'm just going to bail it. So I know when to bail the stone. I'm not going to try and push through on a day I'm not feeling great. So yeah, a bit of a long answer, but
No,
it's
that's
slow,
all right.
progressive.
That's perfect. There's a lot of great points.
Yeah,
It's concise.
specificity and very slow progressive overload, and I built up that patience with that German volume training. Where, as I said, I started with a 20 kilo bar, and built all the way up to 180 kilos for 10x10.
And maybe just to see if there's a point of distinction here, because I know, Dave, you've spoken before about how you derive a lot of that angle for shouldering from your legs or the bend in your knees. Andy, do you follow the same? It's hard to tell in some videos because if people are looking straight on and they just sort of see you're tilted backwards, they might not be able to tell if that bend is coming from your lumbar or from where that's coming from. So where do you achieve that bend from?
Yeah, so it would be a combination, I would say, of the legs and just feeling it in the back, just knowing when to stop the extension for me. So once I've got my stone in place and I'm extending up, I just know exactly when to stop now. It's just practicing that. So there's no guesswork anymore. It's almost like it clicks into place. I just up, and then I know I just by feel know exactly where to stop now, and that's my perfect angle. Could take my hands off, let it balance, not fighting gravity, and then the bumps are really, really effective.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I always just say the angle of my back comes from my knees, right? Because people think like you're just standing straight and you just like do a weird bend back and you're just pivoting at your lumbar. It's like, well, no, like obviously there's going to be some hyperextension a little bit, but a lot of it is I've done like shots and videos from the side where you actually see the perfect angle that the stone kind of rests on it is I have a bend in my knees. Now that puts a different type of taxation, but it's not like that. It's not like I'm bone on bone in my lumbar because I'm arched backwards. So a lot of people just YouTube and Instagram comments. It's amazing how much people who don't do something know about it, right?
Yeah, I suppose it's a little bit like when you watch like downhill skiing, and like people are like, "Oh my God, how does that not destroy your knees?" It's like because you're bending your knees. It's the muscles that are taking the impact. It's not actually the bones. They're not skiing like that, with straight legs.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit like that. But no, I mean maybe that's again. I mean, I think back to a sort of overarching theme here, and I don't know. I think I'm a little bit blessed in that a lot of it for me has just come naturally, and it's been intuitive. For me, as I say, what Dave just said, that I've never actually thought about the knee bend being the same as the back angle. It just kind of worked out just naturally, intuitively. So I'm very lucky in that regard that part of it is luck, is that I've just taken to shouldering like a duck to water.
Oh,
so really fortunate.
Man. Thank you so much for coming.
I got one final question.
Okay.
So in 15 years from now, how old are you?
So I am just about to turn 37.
Okay, so let's say in your early 50s, are you still stone lifting? And if so, why? What is it about stone lifting that could hold your passion?
I would say so. I would say so. I would say that I'll probably, a bit like Steve Weiner, I'll just end up, lightening the weights and just enjoying it. I can see me doing that. At least to some extent. I think I'll always have to have something to focus on, some sort of sport that I want to improve at, or because I've always had something in my life like that, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. Quite funny actually. Here's something interesting for you. I discovered recently that you've got 3 pretty decent stone lifters. So myself, Liam Brown, and Ross McIntosh, and we're all former World of Warcraft players.
Okay.
So it's that tenacity to be like, right, I'm level 1 and it's going to take me 4 days to get to level 60. Let's do it. Let's grind it out. I'm not going to stop. So I always have to have something like that in my life. I don't know what it will be. As I say, it's kind of with this whole cricket thing. That's kind of what it hinges on, because if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, I don't know if I'll go back anytime soon, because it is just such a distance. And that will probably be a big turning point for me, a huge turning point. What I'll focus on next, it'll be all based on how that goes, really. If I'm close, or I think, I'm not far off, then if I do go in the spring break, then I'll probably train my butt off and then go back in the summer and try and do it again. If it goes if it's a catastrophe and it's just I walk away really frustrated and sad, then I might just at that point dial back on the stones a little bit, or do a couple of other things, as I said, like the 180 Atlas stone. I mean, I'm going to try a 190 sandbag in the next couple of weeks. So maybe do tick these kind of things off. But I don't see me going much heavier than a 190 sandbag and a 180 Atlas stone. And then after that, it might be strongman, because I'm not far off the Masters. So I don't have that sort of wear and tear on me. So I don't know, I might jump into the Masters, do some strongman. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess that just leaves one final but very important question for the Horde or for the Alliance.
Sad to say, I was an Alliance geek for most of my WoW career. Yeah, I was Alliance. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Dave, you want to lead us out?
Yeah, man. Just thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure talking to you, man. And I look forward to watching more of your unbelievable lifts. And I'm sure we'll be chatting soon.
For people who want to see more of your stuff that aren't familiar too, where can they find you?
So that's just Crawfordov 24, and that's on Instagram, and then it's exactly the same on YouTube, just Crawfordov 24 both times.
Well, thank you very much, Andy.
Brilliant. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.